All right. So we are back in the Truth to Transformation podcast. And my guest today is Miss Kate Purtle. And she is incredible. One, because she's got a super awesome accent. You'll pick it up soon. But what I love is she has not only gone on the transformation journey herself, lost a ton of weight, learned through the ups and downs how to sustain that weight loss, but was then so inspiring to so many other women and other people that she started taking them along the journey with her and has become an amazing transformational coach. And her business is Persistence Pays, and it's such a fitting name. It is so true. And what I love is her mission is to literally change obesity one woman at a time. So she's right there with you in the trenches. And just supporting you every step of the way. And I think it's because she truly has gone through it and gets it herself and knows that the journey is never over. So super excited. Kate, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited.
Yeah. So first off, tell them where you're recording this from, because you're from a land far away.
I'm currently in the land down under. I'm in Melbourne, which is in Victoria, one of the southern states.
Like, back us up. Tell us a little bit about your story, because it's super inspirational. Kind of where you were, like what caused you to start the weight loss journey?
So, I grew up an overweight kid. My parents fed us well, but we never went hungry, for lack of better concept there. We didn't necessarily eat poorly, but they just didn't necessarily have a great concept of nutrition. So I grew up with the mentality of I was big boned and that's why I was different and it's okay and we love you as you are. And I was never bullied or anything, but I definitely knew that I was different. So in high school, I had a lot of mates. I was always like that chick that everyone was friends with. The funny fat kid was probably the persona that I lived through for most of my life. When I was in year 10, I got glandular, it's called Ross River fever. It's similar to glandular fever. And so I was bedridden for like 6 months. I literally struggled to move from like the bed to the couch. So naturally I gained a lot more weight in that time period. And then for the last 2 years of school, didn't really know what to do about it, knew that I needed to do something, but didn't have the tools or knowledge to do anything. So I didn't do anything. Like I said, I was never bullied. I never didn't feel loved from my family because I was so big. So it didn't really seem like there wasn't much of a push there, to make a change. Then I went to college. So I went from an all-girls school to college where there was boys and drinking and all this shit that I hadn't really been accustomed to, coming from like a private girls' school. And because I was so big and all I wanted to do was fit in, and in Australian colleges, as the same with the States, the mentality is like you drink and you get fucking pissed and that's the way to party. So fitting in, that's what I did. I drank excessively 4 to 5 nights a week. I end up at Macca's at like McDonald's at 6 a.m. Eating whatever was on the menu. And I did that for 2 years straight, pretty much. I had a pretty poor mentality of myself, but again, didn't really know what to do or how to do it. And none of my other friends had the same issues. They were all like the skinny chicks, and I was just that fat friend that's the mentality that I had, that I was just a fat friend and I didn't know what to do. So in that time period, I got up to 135 kilos, which is 290 pounds.
Wow.
So I was a big gal, big gal. And I had a very poor perception, very poor self-esteem, didn't like who I was, but I drank to hide my insecurities. So when I've gone back to look at different stuff, I asked a few friends, like, what was your opinion of me in college? And they say that you were overly confident to mask your insecurities. And I didn't realize that that's what people actually saw me as. I thought I was just like hiding it really well, but I was always the center of attention and drinking way too much and being the idiot, but it was funny at the time. Everyone thought it was funny. But then I'd go back into my college room and like cry myself to sleep because I was so unhappy with where I was.
Do you think like those 6 months on the couch when you couldn't is where all of that started? Or was it really once college hit and then the booze gave you kind of that mask to create this identity?
I'd say college was probably the point where I started to realize that things needed to make a change. The 6 months on the couch was, I was 16 years old. I knew I had a problem or an issue or something that needed to change, but I don't think I was old enough yet to fully understand or make the necessary changes. So yeah, I think it was definitely the college where, one, I gained probably like 40 pounds in that 2 years, just from drinking and not eating and not moving either.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was definitely that time period that the mask started to come, and probably a recurring theme that we'll talk about throughout this discussion is identity. And I really lived through the identity, particularly in that period of like, I'm the funny fat friend. People only like me when I'm drunk, because I'm funny when I'm drunk. And, I'm just that typical like clown. And so that was sort of where that was the reputation I'd formed for myself. And that was kind of the identity that I was living through. And that's something that I would like to uncover a bit with you as the interview goes on. But I think that's a big thing that a lot of people do, is live through an identity, particularly as an overweight person, because it just encapsulates so much of, I don't like exercise. I'm not a morning person. I don't like healthy food. Like all of this shit just comes from that like core belief of I am the fat person and this is who I am. Yeah. So then I moved out of college into an apartment with a friend of mine who was really fit and like used to go for runs all the time, ate really well. And simultaneously I'd started, so I was studying town planning, which is a 5-year degree. And in the third year, you actually work full-time for a year. So I'd started a full-time job, which means that I could no longer go party because I had to be up at a certain time to go to work. I had a strict routine and structure because I had to be there at a certain time and I left at a certain time. And I think the combination of, one, an accumulation of like mental pain and anguish that I'd put myself through, routine and structure, being in a good environment, so with my housemate, then just started to form the process of change. So then a couple of different low points or things happened over a couple of months. So I went skiing with my family, and none of the ski boots at the ski resort fit my calves because my legs were so big. So I couldn't go skiing with my family because I couldn't find a pair of boots that fit my calves. So that was pretty fun.
Yeah. Like, what did that do to you mentally in that moment? I mean, was it just kind of like a laugh it off, play it off, still holding on to that identity? Or was that just with your family, so you were just like kind of rock bottom at that moment? Or
I still laughed it off. My mum didn't go skiing either, so it made me feel like it was okay. And a lot of what my parents did was make me feel like it was okay. And obviously they're all, that's a whole nother topic really. But I always felt like it was okay until I got to this point where it wasn't.
Yeah.
Another thing that happened was I kept going out with my friends, but I wasn't drinking in this sort of transitional period because I knew that I had to get up and go to work the next day.
So that was actually holding you to a standard. So like your shift was the fact that work kind of saved you, your environment, your roommate just kind of put you into that position. It wasn't like a deliberate choice. It was a choice because of this.
Yeah, 100%. But in that time period, I then, I guess, faced that whole identity crisis because my friends who were still at uni and still partying and doing everything I was doing the year before started saying when they were pissed, like, oh, you're so boring, like you don't drink anymore, you're no fun. So then internally I was like, well, this is just validating the fact that I was the funny fat friend and I am only fun when I'm drunk. So that was a huge like struggle that I went through in trying to shift who I was, but then being almost held back by my reputation that I'd formed for myself and then validating that internal belief.
Dang. Yeah, that's deep. Did you realize it as you were going through it? Like, were you, because you're clear-minded, did you see it like as it was going, or are you mostly seeing it now, or at a later point?
I didn't see it at the time. I've done a lot of work mentally in the last couple of years, and I kind of uncovered that.
Yeah.
Which has obviously then helped me to help my clients, which we'll get into. Another thing that happened was there was a dude that I was like kind of seeing, and a rumor got out. And at that stage I was still very overweight, and a rumor got out that we slept together, and clearly he'd been teased by the guys that he slept with me. And so in front of all of our friends out one night, he called me a fat C word, which was really full on. And that was definitely, like I've actually thanked that guy since. I've gone back and said, thanks, like you're a dick, but I really appreciate that, because that and along with a number of other things was kind of like one of those moments where you're like, fuck, like I actually truly believed that. So it made me rethink everything. Yeah, so those were a number of the like really low points. There was plenty of them, like going shopping in a plus size shop. Actually, this is a good one, which a lot of people might relate to. I was like 20 years old, and for me, well, as a 20-year-old, like it's really important to be cool and like look cool and all that kind of stuff. I couldn't shop in like normal clothes size shops because I was too big. And so I had to go to a plus size shop. And walking in there, like shopping, I hate shopping even now, but yeah. I think I was a size 24, and I was 20 years old. So, yeah, walking into a plus size shop was just like that reality of like, fuck, I can't even shop in a normal size shop. But then in there, I was actually a size small, and I remember trying on a dress because we had like I had an event or something on, and I remember thinking, this is so fucked up that I'm a size small in a plus size shop. Like what kind of, I just remember having this like shift in my mentality in the dressing room being like, this is really fucked up that I'm a small and yet I'm so big. And although it's necessary that we have these clothing sizes, it's also like, I don't know, I had this weird, like, is this a promotion of obesity? Like what? And they were like, oh, you're so small. And I was like, what the fuck? No, I'm not.
Yeah.
So that was a weird little moment as well. So yeah, I see my moment of change as almost an accumulation of a lot of different moments, which I think a lot of people would be able to relate to.
Sure.
And I see it as like an accumulation of like mental anguish as well. And my like wake up moment, or like my boiling point, whatever you want to refer it as, was when I was in the apartment that I was living in, and I literally just woke up one morning crying. And I don't know, what had happened the week prior, but I'd been thinking about changing a lot, but I didn't really know what my action steps were. And I woke up one morning in tears, and I remember walking to my cupboard had mirrors on it. And normally I'd just get up and like get dressed and put my makeup on, like have an attitude of this is as good as it's going to get. But for some reason this morning, instead of just like looking at myself, I actually saw what was staring back at me. And it's like just bawling my eyes out, because I'm like, how the fuck did this happen? How did I get this big? How have I let myself get this big? I had like stretch marks. I had my tummy hanging over my undies. I had huge arms, like huge boobs, just no neck. I remember that.
Looking at yourself almost in a state of like just deep sadness and disgust, or was it looking at yourself and seeing like the potential in the future? Like where were you at? like what were you seeing when you talk about this?
Absolute disgust. I mean, I always had quite a negative internal voice of I'm ugly, I'm fat, I'm disgusting, like no one will ever love me. I'm never going to be successful. That was like my internal voice. But that morning it was just, what the fuck? This is disgusting. Like you need to do something about this. So I remember walking into the bathroom and I stood on the scales and I like couldn't see the scales because my stomach was in the way. I was like, what am I doing? And I looked down and it was like 137 kilos, which is, about 290 pounds. And the first person I called was my brother. Because acknowledging where my parents were at and that they always loved me, and I'd had these discussions with my mum before and that kind of stuff. My brother had lost a bit of weight and he'd also studied his PT personal training course.
Nice.
So I called him crying and I'm like, what do I do? Like, I need to change. I don't know where to start. I don't know how to make it happen, but I need to. And my brother's not a very emotional person. He's just like, okay, he's an action taker. So he's like, right, here is a contact. So his mate who did his PT course with him was a PT at a gym that was near me. And so I sent him an email and I was like, hey, I'm Jock's sister, blah, blah, I need you, basically. And I'll never forget the conversation that we had. It was at the gym and he was like leaning back in the chair, like really calm, really relaxed. And I was so fucking nervous. I was like sitting hunched over, like body language means a lot, obviously. I was so uncomfortable. And I remember speaking to him for like an hour and a half and it was nice to actually just have someone to listen to me, who I could be open and honest with, because I probably was never open and honest with my family about how I truly felt, or my friends, because none of them faced weight issues. And so, I started working with him and basically the rest is history. I mean, a lot's happened since then, but that was sort of the start of the weight loss journey.
That's amazing. And so then what's been your lowest weight? I know you've done some, I say lowest weight because I know you've done some amazing things like stepping on stage and doing a complete like body transformation thing. So you may not be that low because you're probably pretty carb water depleted. But just curious, where are you kind of at now coming off of that?
Yeah. So I got down to like low 80 kilos, which is, whoa. I don't know what the conversion of that is. It's times 2.2. So maybe 100.
Yeah, I mean, like you dropped over 100 pounds. Like, yeah. And then post that transformation competition, obviously you're never going to maintain that weight. So I'm sitting around like 90 now. So I've sort of kept a loss of 40 to 45 kilos, which is about 90 pounds. Yeah, that's amazing. Congrats.
Yeah, thanks.
Cool. So like in that time frame, I mean, I'm sure a lot had to happen. But what kept you going? I mean, obviously, like there was this realization of where you were, and almost like this level of disgust, and this I'm not going back to that. This realization of like I'm moving forward to a new me, and this fear of like if I stop, I'm gonna go back to that. Or was it like, were you more like running from that, or pulled towards something in the future, or what kept you going?
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting thing because obviously people are driven by different things. Initially, it's changed over time. Initially, it was running away. It was, I never, ever, ever want to feel that way. I never want to be like that. I refuse to go back to being that sad, sorry person. That was initially. Then I had my 21st birthday coming up. And at that time of your life, it's really fucking important. So I'd seen I was one of the last to turn 21 amongst my friends, and I'd seen everyone sort of be at the center of attention. It was a really big deal. So then I set the goal of, I've got 5 months till my 21st birthday, and I just put my head down and I did not look up for like 5 months.
That's cool.
So in that time, I lost like 18 kilos, I think.
Wow. Yeah.
Maybe 40 pounds. I don't know what these conversions are.
Yeah.
Which was awesome. And then once that happened, I realized that I'm very driven by goals. And if I've got a deadline, then I just put my head down and I don't look up. And so I set a triathlon goal. So I was like,
So
what is something?
not even really a weight loss goal. I mean, like you said something that required daily physical activity.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So and still to this day, I'm not a massive fan of I want to be X kilos on a scale, because as most of us know, there's so many factors that go into the reason as to why our weight fluctuates. And I find so many people like, I'm not going to be happy until I'm 70 kilos. And when you ask the question of why is that important? And also, when was the last time you were 70 kilos? Most of the time the answer is like, I was 15 years old and I remember being happy then.
Yep.
But you need to dive a lot deeper. Like, why does that number matter? No one knows that number except for you. So anyway, I could go on a tangent about that.
Yeah, no. I love it. That's a true coach right there, getting fired up. That's why you're good at it.
Yeah, so I worked out that, like, yes, that I was tracking my weight and my measurements, but it wasn't really enough for me to motivate me to keep going. So I knew that if I set goals that required me to actually put the work in outside of just focusing on a number on a glass platform, then I would make it happen. And obviously there was a deadline. So I had 18 months to this triathlon deadline. I'd lost about 18 kilos, I think. And so I still had quite a bit of weight to lose. And also I'd set a triathlon distance that was really fucking scary for me at the time. Like, I was genuinely, every day I got up, I was like, if I don't train today, I'm not going to cross the finish line. That was the mentality that I had because I was so scared about it. But it meant that I, again, put my head down and I didn't stray from that goal. And I had like posters all over my room with like the date and the distance and like all these motivational quotes and shit. And I crossed the finish line beating what I thought I was going to do by like an hour and a half.
Oh, wow.
So it was, again, just something that challenged me. I was scared about, but it wasn't so scary that it like deterred me from going forth with it.
Yeah.
It was something that I was like, I really want to do this because it would be an epic achievement and let's just go. And then, yeah, I've had several other goals. I did a half marathon. I had like a squat goal. So I did a 100-kilo squat, which is like 220. I did the body transformation comp, and now I'm training for a powerlifting comp. So I strongly believe in goals, but obviously everyone works differently, but that's just how I'm driven.
Yeah, no, that is really cool. And I love that you're changing that. So you're keeping it fresh so that you're always engaged and it's not getting caught up in any kind of boredom with something falling off.
Yeah.
That is neat. So then how did you get involved with the whole coaching aspect? Because I know you were pretty social about like your transformation online. And then like you've ended up just helping so many women transform their bodies and their lives.
Yeah. So in that process of losing weight, I'd actually started an Instagram account. I didn't tell any of my friends about it because I didn't want them to know. But basically it was just a form of accountability for myself. I didn't care if I had 0 followers. It was just a way for me to like, it was almost like a journal or a diary in picture form. So I'd post like quotes that meant something to me. I'd post my meal prep. I'd post like my body progress photos. There was no thought or real concept behind it. It was just like, oh, I want to post this, and I posted it. So naturally the account grew. And over time, people would DMing me being like, hey, you've done so well, blah, blah, blah. How did you do it? And so because I was so passionate about it, I was just like, blah, 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 blah. Here's what I did. Like, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like helping everyone for free because I was just like, this fires me the fuck up and I want to help others.
That's so cool.
So that's how it all started. And then I was working full-time as a town planner in the city and had a really good job. I was working in a consultancy. I was on really good money. I'd been promoted in like a short space of time. So I had good trajectory with that career. But I was sitting there one day and it was like literally another one of those like wake up moments. I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? I hate this. I'm like sitting at this computer, punching out these reports for developers and making them really fucking rich. And I hate it. And I'm bored. And what am I doing? And it took me a little while because I'd studied for 5 years. You know, my dad's such a stickler for like the old school, like go to school and get educated and go to university and go to work in a fucking blue collar job. And, you know, you've already been promoted, blah, blah, blah. Whereas my mum's like, woohoo, chase your dreams, like go for it.
We need both, don't we?
Yeah. So I was a bit caught up in like, what would I even do? Was this a good idea? Blah, blah, blah. So I started studying my personal trainer's course online whilst I was still working. And then I was like, this is definitely what I want to do. Account was growing, was helping people for free, wasn't loving my job. And I was kind of like, well, I can make money out of this and I'm fucking passionate about it and it's going to make me happy. And I'm currently not happy. So being this like huge advocate for like living your best life, what am I doing?
Yeah.
So I called my parents one day and I'm like, I'm quitting my job. My dad's like, what the fuck? No, you're not. My mom's like, cool. So yeah, I quit my job and within a month, like I had to give 4 weeks notice and I actually didn't know what I was going to do. And in hindsight, probably should have managed it a little bit better, but I didn't. I quit my job. I didn't have any clients. I was lucky enough that my parents had a beach house that I could go and stay at for like with no rent. So I went up there and I just started doing a shitload of research. I wrote an ebook. So I wrote like first thing I did was like 10 tips to weight loss. And then that helped a lot of people. And then I wrote a comprehensive guide to weight loss. So it was like a 200-page document that I just like put my life into, which is probably a bit excessive. But on the back of that, it obviously establishes authority. It shows people that you know what you're talking about. And people actually started losing weight off reading that guide.
That's cool. Hey, my friends, Joseph with an interruption here. So, you know, when everything seems to be going right, nutrition is on track, fitness is great, and you're just thinking, I've got this. And then life decides to throw you a little monkey wrench. Wait, why is it called a monkey wrench? One of you guys is going to have to fill me in, but I digress. You know, these things just pop into my head. So, you know when life just does this to you, and then all of a sudden you feel like, oh, I've completely regressed. I've sabotaged. I'm lost. And I have to start all over again. Well, that's life. And that's the beauty of it. And that's part of the journey. And it's being able to bring awareness to the journey, but also appreciation for what you've done. And I believe that is a forefront of what it takes to truly master the journey of transformation, where awareness and appreciation align themselves and continue going. Now, I digress again. And the only reason I'm interrupting the show and dropping this is because Kate was on a roll. She was sharing some very valuable information about how she utilizes the depth of exploration within the client's story to help them unlock why exactly they're holding on to the weight, or maybe why they gained the weight in the first place. Everything that she talked about in her story, she's able to work with clients. And that's a powerful, powerful thing, helping them understand where the weight is coming from, much more than just understanding why they're eating what they're eating. So it was a deep and powerful conversation, and unfortunately, internet came and went, and we lost that entire section. And so sent her over a little note and just asked for the key question that I think needs to be answered the most, which is, what does she truly believe is needed for transformation? And so I'm going to add that little section here. It's just going to be her little audio after my audio off and rolling. So I'm sorry that the internet kind of let us down there, but such is life. And we pick up and we keep on going. Lessons always, my friends, lessons always. Without further ado, here's Kate's beautiful last answer.
So the question is, what do you think is the most important trait to truly transform, and what does it take that someone needs to hear? So as discussed, I believe a true transformation is an entire identity shift. So going from truly believing that you're the person who can't make change, you identify with the fat person, all those kinds of things, to truly shifting through to the person who can achieve whatever they want to achieve, the person who challenges themselves, the person who does go to the gym, the person who does put themselves first, all of those things. And I think that what the most important trait in order to result in that true transformation is just self-perception and awareness. And I truly believe those are the keys to success. So, several years ago, I was almost like living in denial about how big I was. And I also lived in denial about the choices that I was making because I wasn't taking full awareness or full responsibility for my actions. And so once I started to do that, when I logged my food, when I went to the gym and I was held accountable for those choices, then I was able to start to make those changes. So becoming aware of your choices, your actions, and just where you are at, particularly if you're severely overweight, it's easy to just literally live in denial and think that you're not where you are. Like, I'll go back and look at pictures and I'm like, how the fuck did I not realize I was that big? And if you're listening to this, you can probably relate because it's really easy to just get up, not notice yourself, get ready, walk out the door, and you're used to being that size. So becoming aware, I think, is probably the most important trait. What does it take that someone needs to hear? People always used to tell me the impacts of being obese in terms of having a heart attack when you're 20 years old or getting diabetes, and none of those things ever really seemed to hit home with me. I believe it's actually for me it was a visual thing. So actually looking at a picture of myself and being like, that's not me, what the fuck? And again, just that self-awareness of where you're at in order to be able to make the changes that you need to make. What is one piece of advice you'd give a young Kate starting her journey? So following on from that last question, is the young Kate wasn't aware of where she was at. She blamed everyone else for the reason that she was so obese. She blamed her illness, she blamed her parents, she blamed her circumstances, she blamed not knowing, she blamed fucking anything she could blame at the time. And so I would tell a young Kate to take a step back and realize that it is only her responsibility, that whatever's happened in the past is irrelevant now, that the only thing that you can do in order to make changes is to take action, and become aware and create a self-perception that is actually the truth. The other thing that I would tell her is you are capable and able to make changes. I always used to think that I was incapable of losing weight, and I tried everything, but it wasn't the case. I just never fucking tried properly. So I would just tell her that she can do it, that she's a fucking champion, that she's a superstar, and that she will be able to make these changes so long as she sets her mind to it and just fucking keeps persisting. For anyone who doesn't know, my program's called Persistence Pays, and legitimately it is the two words that define a weight loss journey, because shit gets hard, life gets hard, challenges rock up, and if you keep stopping and failing when everything gets hard, then you're not going to get very far. So keep persisting. Persistence does really pay. So thanks, team, for listening. Hopefully I gave you some good insight into my journey and what I teach and what I believe, and hopefully that is able to help you in your journeys. I wish you all the best of luck, and thanks so much, Joseph, for the opportunity to share my story and share my opinions. Health and good vibes!
All right, my friends, thanks again for listening to another great episode. Now, I do have one request. If you know of someone that's got a amazing success story, or if you know of a transformational coach or transformation authority figure with insights and lessons that need to be shared, we'd love to talk to any of these people. There's a good chance we can have them on one of the next episodes, and they continue to help us all grow as we continue to unveil the truth of what it takes to truly transform. Last thing, love for you to head on over to iTunes and hit that 5-star review button. Helps to get this message out and continue to transform more lives. As always, my friends, Coach Joseph Hawthorne, peace be the journey.